Okay.
Good morning. My name is Antoine Habia, and today I'm presenting my capstone project that I did at Albert Hospital in Uptown Minneapolis. My project is about retention of nurse staff at the hospital. It has been a problem since I work over there 10 years ago, just a little under 2 years, a little under 2 years, and then I have to to leave the hospital to quit my job. So retention has been a problem for Albert, and I choose to do this project on that. Across the literature, I found that it was a problem, and also inappropriate staffing and centralized schedule was the root cause. Complain of heavy work load, burnout, and job stress, longer shifts to cover COVID-19 surge have affected work and life balance for nurses. All this I implemented self-scheduling to increase retention. Description of gap to fill. Inflexible schedule causing low job satisfaction and high turnover. My intention is to boost morale and autonomy for the nurses, give them a tool to schedule and support, and be flexible, their own hour. I address factors underlying the turnover. Perceived loss of control due to inflexible time scheduling. Empower staff by increasing flexibility and enhance work-life balance. A satisfied workforce in control of work hours. Practice gap bridge once Abbott received my projects. A self-scheduling protocol not yet implemented. COVID-19 situation have limited access to stakeholders. Those are very serious gap to fill. During this work, I identified current sources for best practice on the issue. It is reasonable to pilot project in a smaller units. Guidelines for sign-up orders, vacation approval, day off requests. The system should be fair, impartial, and also consider acuity need of the floor, because this is an acute hospital. Communication skill training is very essential for effective negotiation. Most of the time, nurses don't have that skill to negotiate. They just accept. Developing and launching the process. The proposal development came from the course rubric that was provided. I did a research approval form, and then I did it, and I did complete it and return it. Did periodic meeting with my preceptor to develop and plan the project activities. Identified a problem in my practice required a change. Problem is low nurse retention at the orthopedic units where I worked before. It's an area of concern due to cost implementation. Developing and launching the process, identify the reason, the retention is so low? The main reason is unflexible scheduling. The schedule comes from the unit manager and go to the HR and does it. So for me, support my self-schedule will support relevant I did support it with relevant evidence. Physically and emotionally demanding clinical tasks. The poor work and life balance due to high workload and low satisfaction and job satisfaction, and increase in intent to leave the organization. I identified during this project, I identified 3 stakeholders. Very important to implement this project. We have the director of nursing, which oversees the whole hospital nursing work. The units, which is the orthopedic unit, and then the staff, the staff nurse who are going to be at the center of the implementation. We needed the DMO so he can be our voice to the upper management, and the unit manager will teach and enforce the compliance, and the staff will use the self-scheduling protocol. I reviewed 30 articles supporting this solution, developed a plan of action or implementation timeline, identify key resources that have recurred, a training budget for at least 3 days workshop, the personnel who are the unit manager and the nurse educator, the IT system and application, for instance the Google Calendar, and then personal smartphone and tablet for the staff, the nurse staff, or the staff nurse. For this project, I selected the PDSA, the Plan, Do, Steady Action, Theory Change, that the nurse will use. I identify project implementation barriers. As always, there will be barriers. It's about getting the scheduling out of hand of the unit manager or the centralized scheduling. I share the plan with my preceptor for a review. Most successful aspect of the project. An opportunity to apply the theory into the practice. I developed a solution which is self-scheduling to a practice problem. I focus on self-scheduling to address low nurse retention, personal observation and background help define the main cause of the turnover at Albert. Like I said, I used to work there around 10 years ago. I supported the causal relation between the cause and evidence, with the evidence. Most successful aspect of the project. I summarize, I search, summarize, and synthesize 30 sources supporting the solution. Thus, the practice change was evidence-based. It's not just something I came up with. I searched it to evidence it. A clinical appraisal of the sources indicate the evidence strength. effective collaboration in a clinical setting, working with my preceptor in alternative clinical activity. Due to COVID pandemic issue, the university have developed this, an alternative way to do this. So my preceptor was involved into it and writing my final project reports. Successes informing future projects. I follow the Capstone process to apply theory into practice. Identifying, conceptualizing a nursing problem, whereas the problem is turnover, high turnover. I observe the gap in the actual practice, interpretation, the evidence analysis to identify the main reason to the low retention, and design a specific evidence-based solution. The comprehensive search synthesis of evidence of the current peer-reviewed nursing journal, identify best practice in the proposed change, collaboration and interprofessional communication in a clinical setting, and writing a report of the project finding. Scholarly thought and oral presentation, and the dissemination of project finding among all the stakeholders. Aspect that did not go as well. The COVID pandemic regulation, again in-person meetings have hindered or impacted this project. We had to meet the stakeholders. Excessive workload over time due to surge in a critical care need. The hospital was not ready to receive solution under these circumstances. The priority is somewhere else. Impeded implementation of the self protocol. That all those things have impeded the implementation of self-scheduling protocol. An alternative clinical activity with the preceptor was my option also. I have not had an access to the data from the HR department about the turnover. Very useful tool for me to do the project evaluation in the long term. Staffing changes to respond to the pandemic also have impacted this project. During this pandemic, orthopedic nurses, even the medical team staff were rotationed to ICU to take care of acute ill COVID patients. A lack of resources, including training budgets. Implementation timelines were disrupted and altered during this COVID surge. Staff satisfaction survey could not be conducted under these circumstances. Understanding to inform future projects. Restricted inpatient meeting as an opportunity for virtual interaction. This is a profession, nursing profession, that need more contacts. It's a contact-based profession among staff, nursing staff, and the client or the patient. Yeah, so this project will inform the future project about that. You have to have alternative. The project to tackle turnover should reduce workload. Flexible schedule can address the workload in such a situation of pandemic time. Today is COVID. Tomorrow will be another epidemic. We can go back to flu epidemic. So this project will just will be more inform those who come for a future project. About hospital can do pilots. Self-scheduling can do a little self under this strain situation. Include alternative or feedback plan in projects. They can also post monthly or quarterly turnover online. Very key metric for job satisfaction. Capstone project should prepare for low to zero participation rates. In this case, it was hard to get a high participation. Securing the budget should be prioritized. Flexible implemented timeline. Web-based satisfaction survey can replace paper-based ones that we used to do, the traditional one. Organization plan, post-implementation support. About must first receive the solution, which is self-scheduling protocol, and do the pilot on any unit or my former unit, orthopedic unit, which I focus more for like 3 to 6 months, evaluating based on 2 metrics, the turnover rates, and then the job satisfaction. Rule out self-scheduling into other departments and units. Continue to measure turnover and job satisfaction. In the short term, maintaining the plan to apply dissemination. Try to make it available to the staff, even non-nursing staff. Presenting the project and its outcome to stakeholders. The goal is to increase a wider adoption into the hospital. Prepare staff for practice change, the PDSH cycle. Change always have resistance. So try to address that concern. Once you wanted to implement a self-scheduling, you are trying to get the power from somebody else, especially the unit manager. Additional support and training are needed for long-term maintenance. Self-scheduling policy be developed and communicated. Guidelines for fair and impartial distribution of shift and day off day. Web scheduler to track the complaints. A payroll and system and payroll and time features for overtime compensation. The unit manager to oversee the whole self-scheduling process. The resources that we need for implementation. staff, nursing staff. They need to be on board. Key for self-implementation, scheduling system. They will be the user, the unit manager to design overtime and shift selection policy. The IT team to address technical issue and educate staff. The network support needed for on-site and off-site system access. We don't want nurse to come all the way from their home to the hospital just for self-scheduling, because this is sometimes this is very critical. How you choose and exchange shift among colleagues. A procedural guideline for fair and self scheduling. Sign up, order, vacation, approval, day off, and holiday request. The unit level staff model to adapt to acute change. Outcome measurable tool to assess user experience. A survey tool to evaluate job satisfaction. The turnover data should be on the hospital website for tracking retention. The post-implementation also support also need resources required initially that I talked about. The budget for 3-day training on self-scheduling. We need to enhance the capacity for nurses to use the system. The meeting rooms with a projector for the training. The nurse educator will be involved to deliver the training and be a resource for the nurses to go to when they need. Open sources application like Google Calendar and Facebook, tablet and smartphone to run these apps. Innovative. The Masters of Nursing, Science of Nursing outcome, MSN outcome. Innovative nursing practice impact quality outcome. In this particular program, I developed a creative solution to low retention, nurse retention. The current practice, which is inflexible schedule, cannot hold the situation. It affects work and life balance. It led to burnout, low morale, low job satisfaction, high turnover. Usually when in a nursing or in healthcare, we talk about burnout. It's just nothing different than depression. I designed an evidence-based practice change to enhance nurse autonomy and job satisfaction, to ameliorate workload impacts on patient safety. I assembled scientific findings from nursing science. An evidence-based practice change was developed. I evaluated evidence from 30 current, less than 5 years, peer-reviewed sources. I identified best practice in self-scheduling from literature. I compiled scientific findings in an evidence summary table. In conclusion, on one hand, you will see inflexible schedule reduce job satisfaction and retention. It limits autonomy and put heavy workload and affect morale. Low job satisfaction increase turnover. Turnover is is costly. Self-scheduling provide autonomy, boost morale, and evidence-based solution to the turnover problem. Best practice guideline for shift selection. Thank you.